Welcome to the Dark Academicals, the podcast where we delve into the mythos of dark academia one book at a time. I'm Sophie Waters.
And I'm Sarah Purnell.
Today we're looking at the YA dark academia thriller Ace of Spades by Faridah Àbíké-Íyímídé.
Written from the perspective of the only black students at an elite private high school, Ace of Spades follows Devon and Chiamaka as they desperately try to uncover the identity of a stealthy antagonist. Aces is sending text messages to the whole school, revealing things both Devon and Chiamaka have strived to keep a secret. With their bright and hard-fought-for futures hanging in the balance, it quickly becomes clear that Aces is more than a prank, more than a school bully, and the truth is something much more horrifying. Ace of Spades is a powerful and necessary narrative created using a clear and accessible writing style. An unflinching social thriller that challenges destructive themes such as institutional racism, white privilege, and widespread homophobia.
Okay, so putting in our normal spoiler alert here, because we are going to go into all of the plot twists, all of the big reveals, and all of the things that you don't want to know about when you start reading this book. So if you've read, welcome. If you haven't, go back, have a read, and we'll see you in a few hours.
We'd also like to point out that there are some content warnings for this book, including racism and racist slurs, homophobia, suicide ideation, and implied essay. There is a full list of content warnings on the author's website.
I think we're going to dive straight into what makes or doesn't make Ace of Spades a dark academia title.
Yes.
Starting with a higher education setting that is often on campus and usually elite or exclusive in some way.
So yes, but no.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't deny that the school is elite and it's exclusive and obviously incredibly difficult to get into, especially if you are a person of colour.
Yeah.
But it's not a higher education. So it's a high school, so it doesn't have the same campus kind of setting that we often see for like American colleges or English universities.
Yeah, and the action's like not exclusively on campus either. It's fairly evenly split, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between like their neighbourhoods and their houses and around town, whereas traditionally dark academia books tend to take place kind of 80% on campus, don't they?
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about this one is like there's not a distinct location, and she actually mentions this a little bit in the author's note. Mm-hmm. It's just an unnamed American town, but with that kind of universality about it that it literally could be anywhere if you took out the references to American things.
Yeah, I agree.
And it has that kind of like atmosphere of the townspeople not liking the students in the school, which is a very kind of familiar dark academia thread.
Yeah, and the school itself is set in a very striking place, I think, because it's described as being like literally in the middle of like what is considered the richer end of town to the, the poorer end of town, for want of a better description. But that's essentially like it's like it divides the two kind of communities, doesn't it? And it sits itself in a very strange kind of location in that respect.
Yeah, because normally these sorts of institutions are quite isolated, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're very dramatically isolated.
Yeah, or they're very clearly like positioned within those like elite exclusive communities. So like, in Gossip Girl, for instance, which this book is kind of
definitely draws on Gossip Girl.
Yeah, it does. So Constance is very much like this big kind of gothic-y, old-timey type building slap bang in the middle of the city. So it doesn't have that kind of sense of have and have-nots.
But it was also on the Upper East Side.
Yes, that's true.
Which is, a very classically rich and privileged neighbourhood in New York City. So, and I think like that same balance is struck with the location of Niveus.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the old Gothic-y architecture, and that's something that Niveus definitely has as well. We don't get much about the actual school, but at some point Devon does say the exterior is old and haunted looking, and the interior is new and modern, reeking of excessive wealth. Which is interesting, because we don't ever hear Chiamaka comment on it at all, really.
No.
Because this kind of, like, wealthy landscape is familiar to her and normal to her.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite a distinction, how it's something that's obviously out of place if you're not part of that world.
Yeah.
Which is
it feels like it's quite big. It's quite big but quite small. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's physically big because, you know, there are science labs that, you know, Devon's never heard of.
Yeah.
Classrooms that they've never visited. But everyone knows each other. Everyone's really involved in each other.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of part of the exclusivity, really, isn't it? And that privileged kind of wealthy society. They are often very connected.
Yeah, everyone
very
knows someone,
interwoven.
or everyone's parents know someone else's parents from doing business with somebody's grandparents, and it's all kind of interwoven that way. They probably share a yacht or something.
Exactly. They mention it being a legacy school, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like parents and grandparents, etc., 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 kind of have gone through the school, and all of the generations after do as well. So there's those connections there as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that is kind of a real tenet of dark academia is the preoccupation with classical studies or Latin, Greek, literature, philosophy. That is not present at all.
No. Nil point.
In the book. I mean, Chiamaka loves science.
Yes.
But it's an undertone. It's just a kind of, it's part of her rounding out as a character, but it's not a main part of the story.
Yeah, and I guess Devon, his love of music is probably more reaching towards that element, because music is like it's an art, it's a subjective kind of subject, whereas Chiamaka and her science is more fact-based, isn't it? Those kind of pursuits are not usually glorified in dark academia, whereas music potentially would be.
Yeah, and I guess that everything that's going on kind of distracts them from those things that they enjoy, whereas in dark academia normally those things are the source of the conflict.
Yes.
And the structure of what is happening.
Yes. See Henry Winter in
exactly.
Secret History.
Murder.
Murder. We do have a murder, but it's not the driving force, or like
it's not an actual murder, is there?
Well, I mean, you feel like it's a murder, don't you? You're made to believe that it's a murder.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's a hit and run, and you're kind of made to believe that they left this girl to die. So for a lot of the novel, you kind of believe there is a murder. So that's why I think it does technically count.
Okay, fair enough. Yep. But there is just generally death as well.
Yeah.
With the ending of the novel, and like suicidal ideation as well.
Yeah, I think there's also just like an overpowering feeling of threat throughout the whole, like of bodily harm. I mean, obviously, Devon receives quite a lot of the bodily harm himself.
He does, yeah.
But there's just that overarching kind of feeling that somebody is going to get seriously hurt.
Yeah. Like, I know I messaged you when I was coming up to the end of the book, when they're getting ready to go to the snowflake ball. You can feel it. You know someone's going to get hurt, and it's just, it was so stressful. I think that plays into kind of the dark, moody and or haunting vibe as well.
Yeah.
because I wouldn't say it's haunting. It's definitely dark. And I'd say there probably is like a hint of moodiness.
I think definitely, I think Devon's perspective is more introspective and moody and...
Classically dark academia.
Yeah. Whereas I think with Chiamaka, it's a lot more nuanced. I think she has a lot more highs and lows in her, in how she expresses and how she communicates and how she kind of interacts with the world.
Yeah, definitely. And she exists in a different social space as well.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, well, that's not traditional to dark academia. I do wonder if that's part of the setup.
Yeah.
It's that kind of enclosing you in a social space.
Yeah.
With Devon, maybe. But yeah, it's a very dark book. Right?
Yes.
It is YA, but it is extraordinarily dark YA.
Thinking about those kind of social circles and how people can position themselves within them. This is what I was thinking about when it comes to the element of hero worship of a particular figure or author. Mm-hmm. Because although this book doesn't have that necessarily, I feel like, at least for a big chunk of the book, there's a sense that Chiamaka feels like she is that figure.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah, she kind of positions herself on a pedestal, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Everyone is below her and everyone should worship her because she deserves to be there.
Yeah.
And that's everything she does at school is kind of building that.
I think it makes her story arc that much more terrible to behold. Like, it is quite horrific when you think feels like she's had to work so hard to achieve what she's achieved, and really it was all just like a big setup for a massive fall.
Yeah, definitely.
I think disgusting.
Yeah, and it's a lot more obvious than in Devon's arc, I think. It's obviously, it's there too. Yeah. Massively. But I think there are different things on the line for each of them, aren't there? I think that also comes into the question of money.
Yeah.
I know we specifically look at old money and how that collides with new money or no money. And that's definitely reflected in the roles that everyone plays at Niveus, I think. Specifically when we're talking about what would have happened to Chiamaka and Chiamaka's best friend Jamie.
Yeah.
If the car crash was discovered. I think that's the most obvious foundation of that old money versus new money.
Yeah.
Because Jamie's money is rooted in, legacy and very American money. Whereas Chiamaka's family's money is, we don't know a huge amount about her family, but it seems to be fairly restricted to her immediate family and linked back to her dad's Italian roots.
Yeah.
So that money wouldn't protect her if, they did get found out for the hit and run, where Jamie is very likely to be saved by his dad's connections, even if he does lose.
Because he's got the right name along with the money.
Exactly. But where Devon enters the picture, that clashes with the no money.
Yeah.
There are lots of tiny microaggressions from Chiamaka. I especially noticed it later on in the novel where she's kind of saying, "Oh, I didn't really know what type of formal wear he'd have."
Yeah.
And I didn't know what his style would be. Because he wouldn't.
She's kind of horrified that he wants to wear his beat up sneakers with the suit.
And that he didn't think to bring dress shoes.
Yeah.
Whereas he probably doesn't have dress shoes.
No.
I think there's also comments from Devon earlier in the novel where he talks about the state of his uniform. And and how it is a bit grubby and a bit beat up because it has to last.
Yeah, and how everyone kind of wears the uniform to the letter on like the first day, and then after that it's like free reign to do what you like, but he doesn't really have anything that he can accessorize with or change it up with.
Yeah, that's very Gossip Girl.
Yes.
Because that's how Blair and Serena set themselves apart as the head of their clique, don't they, really?
Yeah.
And they set the trends and everything. This did really make me want to rewatch Gossip Girl. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't caught up with the reboot yet after what we watched together.
Yeah. But
I was thinking the original because I love Blair. I just love Blair. Anyway, slight diversion there.
Isn't there is a mention, isn't there, there is. She says she wants to what is it? She says she wants to not be someone and then be seen as a Blair Waldorf.
Does she? Let me find
it.
Oh, so it's Jamie talking with Belle saying that she used to have a Winnie the Pooh teddy, but it clashed with her persona. She said she told me herself she needed to seem more like Blair Waldorf and less like Meg Griffin.
Yeah.
But I don't know who Meg Griffin is.
Family Guy.
Ah, okay. I like those kind of subtle nods to like the inspiration or the kind of connection.
Yeah, I mean, there is speaking of connecting text, did you spot the one for The Great Gatsby?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so on page 40, and they're in, I think they're in literature class, but it says, sometimes we poke fun at the conspiracies our teacher, Mrs. Hawthorne, comes up with, like the time she told us F. Scott Fitzgerald was really the reincarnation of William Shakespeare.
Oh, I do remember that, yeah.
To which Ava had said, and I'm the reincarnation of Jane Austen's arsehole.
Yeah. I do remember that. That's good.
But I think little things like that as well just kind of highlight just how white and elitist curriculums are. Because and especially in the context of America as well, because I think F. Scott Fitzgerald is held as this lofty figure of literature, whereas I think in England we have more to draw on because we've been doing it longer.
Yeah, but they are still very white.
Yes.
White men, usually.
Yes. Well, I'd like to talk about the weather, but there's not a whole lot to talk about with the weather. However, I did think there was added rain, which kind of... It was a nice touch to some of the more atmospheric moments, I think. We had rain.
I don't really remember any instances of even rain, kind of.
It was rain. It was cold. He had to have Terrell's jumper. You know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
But no, it just wasn't really present, was it?
No.
Which is a shame. I enjoy a storm in a book. Always brings some good drama.
Well, I suppose there were some storms because I think, is it towards the beginning, he notices there's a storm and like his window only doesn't close all the way, so the rain comes in.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
It's weather, I always notice. I'm quintessentially British. I do like to talk about the weather.
We all do. It's genetics. The last kind of tenet of Dark Academia is underdeveloped social skills, or the protagonist being portrayed as an outsider. I think we have different takes on this one.
I mean, I think from a classic like interpretation of that, I would say Chiamaka no, but Devon yes. However, both of them yes, because that's the whole crux of the book, isn't it? Is that they are outsiders.
But there are definitely different levels between even them.
Yes.
And I think this is the first book we've looked at with a dual perspective, isn't it?
Yes.
So I definitely think that alone changes the dynamic of how you apply them as well, and creates contrast within the text.
Yeah.
So, because I would say they are both outsiders, but I don't think either of them really have underdeveloped social skills. Because Devon just, he mostly just chooses not to.
True.
He makes friends, doesn't he? And he joins up with Terrell, and he has Dre and these people around him. Oh, and what's his name? Jack.
I think he's more prey to his social anxieties than Chiamaka is. I feel that coming through the narrative. Like, he internalizes it and thinks about it a lot more, whereas I think she kind of sees it as a thing that needs to be done.
Yeah, because she kind of places people around her as like a ring of defense, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And she even says at some point that, you know, they were her best friends, but they're not actually her friends.
Yeah.
She's just using them because they make her look good.
Yeah.
Jamie is the only person she genuinely likes, but he also just disgusting person. But he...
Sorry, I thought I was being quiet then. But no.
No. But he also happens to be rich and popular and cool and attractive. So he fits into that image that she's creating for herself.
Yeah. You just want Jamie to get in the bin. Like, you just know from like the first time you meet him that he's just a slimy shit, don't you?
I know,
like,
he's just gross. That was a big betrayal, that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it coming, but...
Still a big one.
Yeah. Still didn't want it to be true. I also think, like, throughout the novel, although they kind of start off as outsiders because of being black, because of Devon being a scholarship student, because of them keeping to themselves and not really kind of connecting with that many people, they also kind of become more of an outsider, but they do it together.
Yeah.
And they kind of form their own alliance and group of friends through that.
Yeah.
I think there's even a bit towards the end where Chiamaka says that she's not alone anymore. So instead of the traditional Dark Academia thing of finding it in the beginning, finding community in the beginning and losing it as everything deteriorates, it's kind of flipped on its head.
I really appreciated that in the epilogue we kind of see that they do kind of achieve the things that they wanted to achieve, rather than, again, definitely. Dark Academia, usually it's all gone off the rails, hasn't it?
Yeah. I do wonder if is that a YA choice?
Potentially.
Because this is the first YA novel we've looked at as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I do wonder whether that's a YA choice, because it's directed at, you know, people who obviously not to the same extremity, but could be in a toned down version of that situation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of light at the end of the tunnel, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I think because of their youth, like it's not like with the older protagonists that we usually look at in adult fiction, where, you know, they have less of a chance to kind of find their way again. Yeah.
I think we're going to move on to a few isolated elements of Ace of Spades that we want to look at. Kind of the big topics in this novel are racism, specifically institutional racism, and homophobia. So we are going to discuss those a little bit, and we just want to acknowledge really that we are kind of coming from this from a very privileged white perspective. So we know that we don't have any of these same experiences, and we are kind of learning about this too as we go.
Ace of Spades is a very confronting book. And I think that's necessary, and I appreciate that. I really do appreciate a book that doesn't shy away from it and puts it into focus, because
it needs to be done.
Yeah.
It comes across from Terrell talking to Devon, actually. A really powerful passage that I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in a novel before, and especially a YA novel. It's quite a long passage, so bear with. He says, "I don't trust white people like you do. I obviously don't think they're all murderers, but I think they're all racist." "All," I say, eyebrows raised. It sounds wild, I know, but racism is a spectrum, and they all participate in some way. They don't all have white hoods or call us mean things, I know that. But racism isn't just about that. It's not about being nice or mean, or good versus bad. It's bigger than that. We're all in this bubble being affected by the past. The moment they decided they got to be white and have all the power, and we got to be black and be at the bottom, everything changed. If we can't talk about honestly, and I mean really talk about it, then what's the point? I read Sir Malcolm X last year, and I agree with him. Some might even treat you good, like an owner might treat a pet. I think that's a really powerful... No, and it is, and I think that's what I was saying earlier, like, we're learning too. It's a journey. It's not cut and dried. It's deeply embedded in our culture, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes, this takes it.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's in ways that you obviously, it's obvious, but then sometimes it's ways that are less obvious. Mm. And sometimes I think you can't believe that it's still happening as well. And that, again, that's coming from a place of white privilege as well, because you go, we recognise that racism is a problem and we can see where there are problems. So why is it still a problem? Do you know what I mean? Like, why is it still happening? But that's because these institutions just refuse to fuck off, basically.
Yeah. So I guess we should probably explain a little bit about what's going on.
Yes.
So this was, quite a reveal. So Niveus Academy has a secret society called the Ace of Spades. And every 10 years they invite, I think it's two every time, isn't it?
Yeah. 2
black students into the school. They kind of let them succeed and have a wonderful time up until senior year. And then the society, which is most of the school, descends and ruins their life and pushes them out. Purely because they're black. There's no other reason for this other than racism.
Yeah. And it's not just like small like microaggressions or even just like racial slurs or, you know, that kind of, or like educational abuse in any way. It's meditated, horrible, emotional, psychological, physical actions that they're taking against these students.
Yeah, they build them up and they systematically break them down again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, they even have this summer camp, don't they? To teach them all about this for all of the new generations. And it's just horrifying. It's really like shocking to read, especially in a YA novel. But I think that makes it even more powerful and even more important.
I think I reached the point where Mr. Taylor, who is probably 3/4 of the book, Mr. Taylor is the only teacher in school that Devon kind of connects with, that he feels like he's on his side, that he can go to for help. And the way Mr. Taylor treats Devon is utterly appalling. Like, I was shocked. That was when I texted you. Like, I don't know. I was just, I have no words still. Like, that scene was awful, obviously in the best way from a writing point of view, but like...
It's shocking. It really is. So basically, Mr. Taylor is the music teacher. Did you say that? I think you did. And kind of has been speaking to Devon before, helping him with, you know, creating a piece of music that's going to be his Juilliard audition. And Devon kind of shows him and mentions Juilliard, and Mr. Taylor just turns, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he laughs at Devon. and says, "You're not getting into Juilliard." Because obviously he's part of this society that is kind of ruining everything, but also he's kind of this really personal, vindictive move of where Mr. Taylor has let Devon out of class to work on his music, because this is allowed if a teacher signs off on it and it doesn't affect your attendance transcript.
Yeah,
But
he
he's
basically,
gone.
he says like, places like Juilliard, attendance is really important, and with attendance as poor as yours, and he's like, but you said that this was fine.
And then there's this bit where Devon just says, "But why?" And he says, "Because I can."
It's chilling, isn't it?
It's really, really chilling, yeah.
I think the sad fact is that people are experiencing the same and similar in real life, not just in fiction, and that is distressing.
Seems impossible, doesn't it? Seems impossible. Definitely. I think the exploration of homophobia is not quite as on an extreme level, I don't think, but it's still extremely powerful and still shocking in the way that other characters view Devon's sexuality.
Yeah.
And the way they kind of... Aces outs him at school publicly by, texting around pictures of him and his boyfriend. And his boyfriend is, a drug dealer called Dre. And Dre kind of gets spooked by this because he knows he will get, ton of bricks down on him if anyone finds this out. So he gets rid of Devon, and Devon gets a beating for it.
Yeah. I mean, but isn't it the pictures of him and Scotty get circulated?
Oh, yeah, you're right, it is, yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that even though it's obviously devastating for both of them, Scotty quickly bounces back and uses it as like a leverage somehow for his position at the school, whereas Devon, I think at the school there's less of a homophobic, like outwardly homophobic vibe in the same way that the racism is present.
Yeah, definitely.
But it clearly doesn't have the same outcome for Devon as it does for Scotty.
No. As well, I think, because Scotty is part of this society.
Yeah.
And they are all tasked with learning about them and bringing them down. So there's always that out for Scotty saying, "I was just doing what you told me to."
Yeah, yeah.
He has that kind of safety net there.
Yeah.
If he didn't want that information to be out there.
And I guess his friends rally round him, whereas Devon loses his friend.
Yeah, his only friend.
Yeah.
And we actually end up learning that he was part of it anyway.
Yeah.
Just like blow after blow. And I feel like Devon got more of those betrayals than Chiamaka. Because Chiamaka didn't really have many people that she cared about to begin with.
Yeah.
It was only Jamie and Belle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it was reassuring when he finally discussed it with his mum, though.
Yeah.
Because he was so scared throughout the novel, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That his mum was going to hate him or disown him. And she, she already knew, and she was waiting for him to tell her. That was reassuring, I think.
I also found it reassuring that Chiamaka didn't, well, as far as we're aware, does not pick up her relationship with Belle as well, because I think it could have been so easy for her to have gone back there.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm kind of glad that she doesn't.
Yeah, I'm glad that Devon and Chiamaka just separate from everyone completely, don't they?
Yeah, they definitely, I think there's a good lesson in boundary setting.
Yeah, there's no forgiveness, there's no second chance after they realise what's happened.
Yeah.
I find this so hard to talk about because I'm so aware
I know
that it's not coming from my experience.
I know, I feel you.
Something that is coming from my experience, though, is there's a definite feminist undertone to Ace of Spades. It's not a focus, it's not a plot point, but I think it's very clearly woven into Chiamaka.
Yeah.
She understands that as a girl, specifically a black girl, she has to work twice as hard to achieve what she wants to achieve.
Yeah.
And I think she also mentions at some point as well that I can't remember what the word is, but basically young black people are automatically treated as adults when they do something wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that ties into kind of like how Chiamaka takes on the world, takes on the school. She knows what's expected of her as a popular girl, and even if that she doesn't like it and it doesn't fit with her own view of herself and, you know, what she needs as a person, as a I think she's a clear feminist, isn't she?
Yeah.
But she kind of separates that and does what she has to do. I think that is a very feminist move.
Yeah. I think
Don't
so.
think
I think no, I get what you
well.
mean. I get what you mean. I think I also appreciate the positioning of the role of the mother as well in this book. Like both of the mothers, both Chiamaka's and Devon's, are these strong women. Mm-hmm. Strong kind of role model figures for both of them. Which I think is I think especially in YA, there tends to be a lean towards making the parents disappear.
Yeah, it's like the dead mum. There's just always a dead mum.
Or the parents just aren't in the picture at all.
Yeah.
There's no mention of them.
They just work all day.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are very present and they're involved in their children's lives.
Yeah.
Devon's mum more.
Yeah.
And that's returned, I think. I think it's just a difference of relationship, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked that too. One thing I did want to bring up, which is completely unrelated to all of those things we've just talked about, is a connection I noticed with Phoebe Wynn's Madam, which was the setting fire to the school. And it's a very symbolic kind of destruction of this kind of place of corruption. This it's almost like the locus of a cult, isn't it?
It is.
It's like the people are too powerful and too rich and too connected. And, you know, a handful of students don't have the power to take that historic institution down. But fire does.
True. But also, like Madam, what we see in the end, in the epilogue, is that, you know, Chiamaka and Devon are working to try and intercept it from happening again at other schools. So even though one's been burnt to the ground, others are still carrying on the tradition.
Yeah, they're fighting for people not to suffer the same fate, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a definite connection between those two ideas. I just thought that was interesting.
It is interesting. When I was thinking about the fire, though, I couldn't remember. Do we know who started it? How it starts?
Jamie was holding the lighter up to Chiamaka and it got like thrown aside or pushed aside, didn't it?
Yes.
So I figured it was just from there.
Yeah.
Again, it was an accidental fire.
Yeah.
Which is the same in Madam. Well, it was a deliberate fire in Madam, but it was supposed to do...
Well, exactly. It was technically a deliberate fire in Ace 2 because he, you know, lit the lighter and then,
that kind of spiraled out of control. It's where, you know, the deaths that we mentioned, because Jamie dies in the fire, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And I think there were 3 deaths in total. I can't remember the other 2. Someone in Devon's music class.
Yeah.
I can't remember the others. So the big question is Ace of Spades a Dark Academia title?
No.
I don't think so either. I think we hinted at this very much at the beginning.
Yeah.
Not a subtle hint, because I'm not very good at those, but but I don't think this is Dark Academia. And yet every review, every tagline calls it Dark Academia. So why is it being tagged as Dark Academia?
I think it depends on how loose your definition of the genre is. I think we ourselves have a very fixed kind of idea of Dark Academia, and it stems from The Secret History, which is the granddaddy of Dark Academia.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where we take our cues from. And as we've gone through kind of our criteria of the definition, there are some elements where you can say, yes, it does have that. So it's in the right ballpark, but it's playing the wrong game.
It has nods to Dark Academia.
Yeah.
But it's primarily a thriller, isn't it?
Yes.
And a social thriller, a social commentary.
Yes.
That's more powerful and more important in this novel than any nods to Dark Academia.
I think maybe if you are simply just taking the words dark and academia like separately, because it is dark and it is set in an academic setting.
Yeah.
I suppose in that sense it is Dark Academia.
When you approach it literally.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Because I think for me, the preoccupation with classical studies and all the hero worship element is kind of integral to Dark Academia.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because they're the pinnacle of the conflict, the fallout, the everything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think looking at that kind of tells you whereabouts on the scale it kind of sits for Dark Academia. So without that, because, you know, even when we were looking at villains, it was like, it wasn't as heavy as The Secret History. So it wouldn't necessarily be as far along the line as Secret History, but it is the crux of the novel.
Yeah, and it's still very clearly and obviously a Dark Academia text.
Yes.
And I think all of the ones that we've looked at so far, obviously apart from our Dark Academia adjacent title of The Great Gatsby, they are all very clearly Dark Academia.
Yeah.
According to our specifications.
Yeah.
Until Ace of Spades.
I think you can feel it in the writing. I think both of us very quickly kind of picked up that this wasn't Dark Academia within the first couple of chapters, really. I don't think I even needed that long. I was just like, no, this isn't Dark Academia. Yeah. And that's not to take anything away from it. It's just that this is not how I would categorize this book.
No. I do also wonder, like, I've brought this up so many times, but the difference in YA and adult.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that there is a connection there.
Maybe.
I'm starting to think that can YA be Dark Academia?
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we do have a few titles next season.
Yeah.
That we are going to explore from YA. Spoilers. So
I do think it's possible, and I do think that we will get one. I think somebody will do it. I mean, that doesn't take away like how important or even how harrowing Ace of Spades is. Like, it is a powerhouse of a book.
It is an incredible book, yeah. It's powerful, it's important, and I'm really glad we read it.
Yeah,
really,
same.
Because thriller isn't something that I gravitate towards, and it is sold as a Dark Academia thriller. Yes. So I wouldn't have picked it up if it was just a thriller.
Yeah, same. I'm not usually a thriller fan.
No.
I'm not very good with the suspense.
Me out.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it was a good kind of melding of like the genres of like social commentary and thriller and just a damn good YA novel.
Yeah.
So I really, really liked it. Eventually, I have to admit, I struggled in the beginning. I did struggle to connect with Chiamaka. I found her really abrasive, but I really liked Devon. And he kind of carried me through enough until I started to sympathise with Chiamaka. It's not quite a dark academia novel.
It is not. Says we. But I mean, if anybody listening would disagree with us, then please do come and disagree with us.
Yeah, please talk to us about it. Yeah. Because, as you've said, I think it does depend on how you are approaching the definition.
Yeah.
But I think it's also what elements in the novel are at the forefront.
Yeah.
And it's definitely thriller rather than academia of any kind.
Yeah, I think it could be almost like a fringe title. Like, if it's almost like one of those, if you enjoy dark academia, you'll probably enjoy this.
Yeah, definitely. Or even like a kind of a beginner.
Yeah.
Someone's not ready for the secret history.
Yeah.
Or villains, because they are intense novels.
Yeah,
and this is also intense, but in a different way. You know?
Yeah.
Our next title, and the last title of season 1, will be Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. During your 3 years at Catherine House, you will have no contact with those in the outside world. Each of our students has been selected as someone who belongs here. You will give to Catherine, and Catherine will give to you. We will not let each other down. Catherine House is a university like no other. Catherine House is a university like no other. Into its celebrated world steps Inez, a young woman who welcomes the school's isolation rather than its illustrious past. As the gates close and Inez finds herself start to be inevitably seduced by its magnetic power, she begins to realise the question isn't why she chose to come to Catherine House, but why Catherine House chose her.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this one because it's been on my read list for so long.
Yeah, same. I'm really looking forward to this. It's got quite Marmite reviews.
Yeah, I saw that on Goodreads. I didn't look at any, but I saw that it was 3 stars. I was like...
Yeah. People seem to really love it or really hate it. So I feel like I'm going to enjoy it. I'm excited.
I hope that you have enjoyed this episode where we've been exploring Ace of Spades and that you join us next time when we explore Catherine House. Until then, bye!
Bye!